Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining our Signworld public webinar today. My name is Jeannie Borum, and I am part of the corporate team here at Signworld. And for those of you joining in for the first time for one of these sessions, I'm going to quickly give you an overview of what to expect for this next hour. First, what we're going to do is introduce you to our panelists, which are current owners in the business today, to share a little bit about themselves, their background, their location, and a little bit about their business, so you get to understand who they are and where they're located, etc. And then we're going to turn the floor over to our participants. At that time, we're going to call you out by name and ask you to share where you're located, and then go ahead with a single question for each of the owners to individually answer. You'll get multiple perspectives from each of them. Sometimes shared perspectives, sometimes unique answers, but you'll get your opportunity at that point. If time permits, we'll go around for a second or third time for questions. We'll just depend on how many are participating in our live session today. So with that, let's go ahead and introduce you to our owners who are our panelists today. So I'm going to go from order of longest in the business to the newest. So with that, Bill, if you can go ahead and take yourself off of mute and give yourself an introduction to the group today.
Hi, my name is Bill Swanson. I own Signs and More. We're in the Atlanta suburbs. It's a town called White. It's north and west of Atlanta. We've been in business almost 18 years now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. I can't remember what all the questions were I was supposed to answer. I have an 8,000 square foot building. We do routed signs, ADA signs, wraps, and all those kinds of things in-house. We still outsource our electronic signs because we haven't gotten a UL certification. But we keep pretty busy, do about $2 million a year. One project we did in the last year or so that was kind of a fun one that people might be familiar with, the Six Flags, if anybody's familiar with them. They have a place called Whitewater, where it's a water park here in the Atlanta area. And their sign, they had been up for I don't know how many years, blew over. It was being held up by telephone posts. And we ended up getting a new one for them. We had to go through a whole bunch of rigmarole with the zoning folks. And it was an electronic message center. And we were only allowed to put a 2-foot by 10-foot message center in, which is way too small for where they were and what they were doing. But they wouldn't agree with our variance application. So it was a masonry sign. It had some lights on the sides, and like old-fashioned lights that would go on a pole. And so it was really cool looking, and it was about $130,000. So it was a good project, but those EMCs get kind of expensive. So,
Number
is
of
there anything
staff?
else?
Number of
Oh,
staff?
we have 15 people. We actually just gave up $300,000 worth of business and 4 employees because we weren't really making money at it. We were doing trucks. We were wrapping trucks for a truck manufacturer, makes box trucks. They kept asking us to reduce our prices in the midst of rising costs. And we finally told them that we weren't going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So they ended up hiring my guys and bringing them in on their own, and they're paying them a bunch more, and they have too many people. So they're paying a lot more than they were when they were paying me, but they wouldn't pay me enough.
There
So
you go.
that's our challenge for the year, to make up the $300,000 that we walked away from.
Yeah, very good. And you just bought your building, right? This building that you're in now is a building
Yeah,
you bought?
we've been in it for 2 or 3 years. Yeah, we own it. I own it. I lease it to myself.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for that. Oh, what'd you do before you joined and started your Signworld
Oh,
business?
right. I've been in manufacturing my whole life. I started off as a mechanical engineer and an MBA, worked with worked with U.S. Steel in the steel mill, worked with Firestone in a tire factory, and I was running the front end of a tire factory. Then I became a plant manager for a roller company, and then I became head of all of their manufacturing, and then I became president of another roller company. And then I finally decided it was time to work for myself.
Very
And
good.
it's been 18 years.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for that introduction, Bill. Appreciate it. All right, to our next newest owner, let's go to Dan.
Okay. So the name of our business is Paragon Signs and Graphics. We are in Oxford, Connecticut. It's a central part of Connecticut. We are entering, let's see, we're in our fourth year. Doesn't seem like it. It goes by so fast. And we're working out of a facility that's 3,200 square feet. We have currently 3 full-time employees, not including myself and my partner, my wife. And then let's see, so sales projections. So 2025, our target is to hit 500,000 this year. We dropped a little bit last year just because we closed a large job late or I should say early January. It closed late. We're supposed to close, or else we would have had growth. But so we're a little bit behind. But this year we expect to firmly get to 475 or 500,000. What else? So our biggest customer, our largest customer is a national company, actually international company called Marmon Industrial. We've been working with them for the 3 years that we've been open, and they have sites around the country. The original project they came to us was a rebrand, and so basically the company Marmon bought 7 different facilities. And what they do is they do large transoceanic cables, the large transmission cables for power and data communication. So they bought seven different places around the country and in Canada, and they had to rebrand them all simultaneously. So that was our role. It was a great job. We shipped, we had built or built ourselves everything here in Connecticut. We shipped it out all to the different locations and worked with installers there. And so obviously a lot of project management went into that. And we continue to work with them. They have acquired a new site this year or last year. We just finished up, and they anticipate acquiring another site this year. So they're the gift that keeps on giving. And then my background, so corporate, my wife and I both worked for a big blue computer company for a lot of years. And I did everything from working as a technician to working back office to sales analytics. And so I've had a little bit of everything. I had some manufacturing background. My personal background is electromechanical design, and so that I've always been doing. And so sign building was a pretty good fit for me, and that's kind of what pushed us into this versus other types of businesses we looked at.
Very good. Thank you for that introduction, Dan. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
And then our next to the newest owners that we have on the call today, Ben or Jamie, who's taking the lead introducing yourselves? Go ahead, Ben.
Do you want me to?
I was like, we
I'll go.
didn't plan it.
Yep,
Hey, you're winging it like every small business owner does.
that's right. So we are Jamie and Ben Howell with Saltwater Signworks. We're in Wilmington, North Carolina, right on the coast. It's snowing or snowed last night, but it normally
Same.
does not do that here. We are entering our 3rd year of business. So we just turned 2 last November. We are in a 4,200 square foot facility. We have 4 employees other than me and Jamie, so 6 total. Our 2025 sales projection, we're aiming for 1.3 million, but we're stretch goaling to 1.5. Hopefully we can get there. We had a big year last year. We're aiming for 1 million and just shy of that. So big year last year. And then our biggest biggest project recently completed is a indoor skydiving iFly company. We did their 12-foot tall monument outside, all of their interior graphics, 10-foot tall channel letters on the building. And so that was a total of about 90 grand for that whole interior exterior job there. Backgrounds, I'll let Jamie speak to her background. My background, I have a degree in mechanical engineering, spent 20 years in the nuke industry, 5 with the Navy as a civilian, and then 15 in either manufacturing or reactor servicing in the commercial nuclear world. But plenty of manufacturing background inside that. So that's kind of how we ended up here a little bit. And I'll let Jamie take over for her background.
Thank you. Okay, so my background is mostly in service-based organizations. That is really where my passion lies. I worked for a large restaurant company as a corporate trainer and traveled and opened new stores. And then when I had to grow up and get like a real job, I went to work at a bank and was a corporate trainer for that bank for 4 or 5 years. Then we had our first son, and I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. Well, those have expressed both me and Ben, but it worked out in our favor in that I was really involved in our children's school and our church and the community. So that really has helped us significantly with the fact that we had such a large network to pull from. And so Ben and I balance each other well, and that I don't like his lane. He does not really like my lane. And so that's how we're still happily married and running our business after a couple of years. So I focus more on front of the house, engagement with employees and networking, things like that.
Wonderful. Well, great to have you both on the call today, and congrats on a great second year. That's fantastic. Jack, if you want to give a quick introduction.
I'm Jack Werner. I joined Signworld as an operation in 1995. I started in 1,100 square feet with one employee. Ended up 10 years later in 5,000 square feet, staff 11, doing about 1.3 million in revenue. My largest customer was a regional master franchisor for Subway with 200 locations. I did about 250,000 per year of rebranding Subway locations. I then sold my business. Joined Ken Kin, our founder, in the corporate office to learn his end of the business. Finished buying him out and became the president of Signworld back in 2014, and had that role until March of last year when I turned presidency over to Dan and Jean, my son and daughter. They're now in charge. When I see them, I go, "Hi, boss." But I continue to work with Signworld Owners. I've been in new owner training all week. I teach sales class every Monday, and then work with potential clients and work with existing owners, trying to help them grow the business. So when I answer questions, if it goes to my experience, I'll speak there. If it goes to training and policy, I'll speak from there. I do have to break away early, though. I've got a commitment that I've got to break away halfway through.
All right. Very good. Thank you for the introduction and being here today, Jack.
Before that, I ran a wholesale food distribution company. So nobody joining Signworld has any sign experience. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for your business skills, your project management skills, your customer interaction skills.
Absolutely. Very good. All right. Well, let's turn the floor over to our participants today for some questions. Again, I'll call you by name and ask you to come off mute. So I'm going to go from the order that I see on the top of my screen. Bob, if you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're located, and go ahead with the question for them to answer.
Hi, my name's Bob Habeisen. I live north of Boston in a little seaside community called Newburyport. And my question is, when you guys started your franchises, well, sorry, I guess franchise is the wrong word, but when you started your business, what did you do for initial demand? How did you get your first customers? And did you use like referral sources from your previous life? And I have a lot of those because I'm a lifelong business-to-business marketer. I have a lot of marketing former colleagues who do trade shows and stuff like that, and I feel like I could maybe tap that. And I'm curious about like whether you incentivize those referrals, like give them a I don't know, a referral bonus or something like that.
Great question. Finding new customers is probably the #1 challenge for brand new owners to start their business. Dan, let's start with you first. What's your thoughts about how you got your initial customers and advice for future owners to consider to be successful?
Yeah, sure. We started off, we had a couple of months before we were in our facility, before we actually had everything going. So we started very early. You want to get off the ground. It's one of the biggest things you want to do is get going, get out early and get yourself known. So I spent the first 3 months just going out in chambers of commerce, BNI networks, any place I could get my face out there and just meeting people and introducing myself and introducing the business. At the same time, in parallel, we, of course, were getting our website up and running. And that was all, it takes several months to get up, just to get built. And then once, it gets up, it takes time to get ranked. So, that first 6 month period was really out pressing the flesh personally in the community, but also getting the website up and running and social media and all that. And that's, it takes time, but, it's 6 months in when we finally got in the building and got set up, the phone was ringing. So whatever we did, it worked.
Very good. And do you ever do like referral structure at all for people to refer you to others, or do you just ask them for the referrals?
We're just asking for referrals. We're in a pretty good area where it's an industrial area, and we're finding, our ratio of, what's coming through the web, new business versus referrals or repeat business is growing. We're up to about 40 or 50% repeat or referral business. So that's, we haven't had to, let's put it that way. It's working the way we're doing it.
That's great. Congratulations on that. That's fantastic. Bill, when you started, it was not even a website. It was Yellow Pages. So how did you get your first customers then? And what do you do today to find new customers?
Well, I think I can echo what Ben just said, that we were about networking, doing everything I could to get myself out there to let people know that I actually had a sign company now. I was involved in a number of things in my previous position. I was very involved in one of the chambers, not the chamber in my area where my business was located, but one that was nearby. And so I joined the local one. There are a bunch of business associations in this area because the chambers end up being so big, they're too cumbersome to really meet people. So a lot of the cities that fall in a county are having their own business associations. So we did that because there really wasn't, I mean, we did develop a website, but the whole Google thing and SEO and that stuff really wasn't going on so much.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
we do not pay people to refer to us. We try to earn their business by doing a good job. And I know personally, if I refer somebody, I'm only going to refer a good person because it reflects on me if that person I refer does a bad job. So I figure as long as we do a good job, we do get referrals. And of course, we get a decent amount of repeat business as well.
yeah, absolutely. So Jamie, I'm assuming this question's for you since you're front of the house and out there talking to customers. What did you do in the beginning to get your business known and acquire those initial customers?
We did exactly what Jack told us to do, which is tell everybody that we knew what we were doing and, when we were doing it, and we asked for the business. The sales background I have is just very relational. And so we just tried to take the relationships we already had, let people know what we could do, what we were capable of. We did join, or I joined BNI. I also am part of a networking group called CREW, which stands for Commercial Real Estate Empowering Women. They do allow men members, so there's that. But we're an affiliate member. Obviously, we're not a broker, but that's a great resource for us. I've found that to be where like the people we want are there, as the corporate credit card holders, the people that just have like a task they're assigned and they got to make it happen. They just swipe that card and, it's not their own money that they're holding on to really tight. I agree with the chamber. We joined one and we're actually recognized as Business of the Year last year in the neighboring town next to us. And then our chamber is also really large in the area where we live. So I totally agree with that. But they have a lot of small little events. And so I go to the small events. There's like coffee ones, there's lunch ones, then there's stuff after work that's, more heavily attended, but I've found that that's where I can make those relationships with people. And then just speaking to the marketing aspect, I wish I'd have known then what I know now. And Jack always says reviews are important. You ask for the referral and you ask for the review up front to tell people that's what you want. But those reviews are huge in moving your presence on Google and the organic presence. So we push really hard for that. We're at 112 5-star reviews, and just being a good partner with your marketing company.
Did you ever pay for referrals?
Sorry, no, I forgot, Jeannie. Sorry. I was like, don't forget that part.
Great.
No, we don't pay for referrals. But I agree with what was said already. We really just try to knock it out of the park. I mean, for everybody, but especially someone that's referred to us.
Okay, very good. Jack, any comments?
While the referrals and the repeats will drive the business long-term, and the internet's going to drive the great majority of the business once it gets established, in those first few months, you are feet on the ground to get the business, not cold calling, not knocking on doors. 90% of our owners have never done sales before. It's more of a consultative role. But the good news is you're only looking for perhaps 10 customers in the first month, 15 in the second, 20 in the third. You're not looking for hundreds of customers. You're looking for handfuls. And you're willing to do that networking as long as it's a temporary push, not a forever life push until things get rolling.
Very good. Thank you. All right, let's go to our next guest for a question. Eli, if you can take yourself off mute, tell us where you're located and go ahead with the question.
Hello, everyone. Name is Eli Osorio, and I'm located in sunny Chicago, where it's a lovely, I think, -12 right now with the wind chill. So I appreciate you guys taking your time and being gracious with that time with us. So one of the things that I have been looking at is part of the upfront costs that come along with that. And some of the owners, and maybe this is more geared towards our newer owners, as far as the tools and the machines that are purchased, as far as what Signworld helps us in purchasing, what worked best, what brought the most comfort, what scaled the best as far as the machines that you all purchased as part of joining.
Okay. So I'll go to our newer owners and I'll add to it. Have you bought anything in addition to the general initial package that you would suggest to future owners? And to the point of the question from Eli, how has it allowed you to scale and grow? Are you finding a need for more equipment at this point in your business, or what else is out there? So Ben, do you want to answer that, or Jamie? I'm assuming that might be a big question.
I'll take it. So we still have all of our initial equipment. It is doing plenty for what we need. We don't need to buy like another printer. We don't need anything else. I will say that we started with the rollover table. And then we bought a laminator about a year ago, the roll-to-roll laminator. That is part of the initial package. We just didn't buy it with the initial package. The reason we did that is our initial facility we were in was like 1,400 square feet and really like 900 useful square feet. And the table was the rollover table was our work table, was our laminator, was the end all be all of everything. And so that was a very useful, I got that advice from another owner, which was basically a used roll-to-roll laminator is, 60% of the cost of a new one. A used rollover table is 95% of the cost of a new one. So you're just better off spending the money up front and then getting a used roll-to-roll if you need one later. And actually, we ended up buying one on sale that was almost, it was basically 60% the price of a new one when Grimco was running a giant sale. So we kind of lucked out on the timing of that one. But that's the only other equipment we've bought. We're looking into CNC routers, laser machines, other things like that. But I'm waiting until kind of our dimensional letter demand goes up a little bit to make sure that I'm going to be able to just make it worth our while. We have found really good partners through Signworld, also other local partners as well. So we give up a little bit of margin doing that, but we're not losing the sales. And so you don't necessarily need a lot of equipment if you can find good wholesale partners. And Signworld has a huge list of them, and they're all very, very good. So, the initial equipment will get you a very long way.
And Ben, just small tools or just other things, like, was it a lot? Was it minimal? Like, any suggestion on the tools, like the drills and, the other things that you need to install or do other parts?
Yeah, you're going to need probably a few $1,000s unless you're kind of handy and you've got a lot of stuff around the house. I already had ladders around the house. I've got more tools than most. So that was a lower investment for us, but I'm slowly replacing my personal tools with actual shop tools and taking my stuff back home. You're going to need drills, you're going to need impact drivers, you're going to need ladders. But yeah, I mean, your mastermind group, once you sign up, you guys will be talking about all of those things. And basically, you learn, hey, I've built in a little bit of margin on this one. So this job, when I close it out, it's going to buy my next ladder. It's going to buy my ladder. So we always kind of celebrated those little wins as well. Getting a nice $500 ladder that, you got somebody else to pay for you through your profits. But yeah, it's little stuff like that will get you. You've got to do some investment on the front end. But we kind of lucked out. We kind of had a lot of stuff to work with at the beginning.
Okay, very good. Dan, how about you?
Yeah, so to me, it comes down to how much you plan on building, right? What your capability is early on. And so my background being electromechanical and folks that I brought on early were people that were capable of building. We wanted to do as much in-house as we could. So, a panel saw, it was critical to get just for, cutting all your substrates. We went out and got a table saw, drill press. It's just so that when we did have to fabricate, which we wanted to do a lot of, we had that here. The rest of it is, like you said, the small hand tools and all that, it does add up. You got to have, one or two of everything. And I did the same thing. I emptied my garage. I had two or three of everything. And so I brought at least two of everything in. But the other thing to think about is furniture. Furniture is not insignificant. So, however much office space you've got, desks, cabinets, shelving. Shelving was an important thing to think. It was an afterthought, but it was something you need where you're going to store all these tools or supplies and that kind of thing. And then, of course, finally, work tables. We did get the rollover as well. And I'm happy that we did. It was a good choice. We use that thing. It's a workhorse, and we use it every day. But we did build several other tables, work tables, to have, so that when you get the bigger jobs, it's nice to be able to butt tables up to each other and have that bigger workspace. And we have the area to do that. So we built probably, I've got, I think, four additional tables that we've built over time. We didn't do them all right away. It's just over time we've added, and that's what we got. But yeah, furniture is something you want to think about.
Okay, very good. Bill, remember back 18 years ago? You have a chisel and a hammer? What'd you have?
Well, the panel saw was one thing that we bought right away because we could see. I know some people try to buy their substrate already cut to size, but when you can cut a 4x8 piece and use the drops and everything, it's much better. So yeah, all the drills, and we have a couple of chop saws, basically everything Dan said. And then since then, as we've grown, we've ended up with more space, so we've been able to add a few more fun toys that we couldn't fit in our first space.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to wrap up this question, the startup expense budget that is recommended for new operations is $35,000, and in the breakdown descriptions, we do have about $8,000 allocated towards furniture, sign making tools, and the substrate cutter that you're hearing these owners mentioning. So that's already been incorporated into the total Signworld investment. But as these owners are sharing, you're going to acquire other tools and things that are going to help you be more efficient and effective as time goes on in the business, for sure. All right, let's go to another guest for a question. Fahad, if I can ask you to come off of mute, tell the group where you're located, and go ahead with the question for them.
Hi, my name is Fahad Ali, and I am from Cincinnati, Ohio. It is pretty cold over here as well. If you guys had to go back in time and reflect back on what you could have done differently, would you have done something differently when you were starting out? And any lessons learned? Thanks.
All right. Well, we only have a few minutes, so keep all those lessons short. No, I'm just kidding. Great question. Always asked in these webinar sessions. So let's go in reverse order. Bill, thinking back to the beginning, or if you just want to talk about the current business climate today, what do you think is most critical for new owners to be successful? I don't know if you want to answer it from the very beginning, what you would have done different, or if you think about it today. Up to you.
It's been kind of talked about a little bit, but one thing, as far as talking to your friends, the people you go to church with, the people you know from here and there, getting those pity sales. Those are important. You get some sales, you get some practice. It makes you feel better when you're out selling more because you've already gotten a few things under your belt. So the one thing that I would do differently, and I'm not sure if I'd do it now or not, but back then, there was no internet, no a lot of stuff, and I would think very seriously about bringing in a full-time professional salesperson so that I could concentrate more on the manufacturing and making sure that was all being done right, and someone who had the experience doing all that networking and those things could do a better job than I did.
Okay, very good. Thanks for that reflection. Dan, how about you?
I think it's pretty simple. I would, to do over again, I would keep my eye focused on my fixed costs and, strictly regulate that a little tighter. We went in with the thought process of, we ended up, the sign world tells you, you guys tell us, 2,500 square feet or less, somewhere in that range, 1,500 to 2,500 square feet. We started off with about 3,500 square feet. And thinking, hey, look, we're just going to push hard and we're going to grow into it. But what that actually did is it kind of put a little bit of a stress on us that I think was unnecessary. I would have rather started in a smaller space and outgrown it and had to force myself into a bigger space. It takes a little bit of that pressure off in the initial months of having to, meet to meet your nut for the month, cover those expenses.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you. Jamie and Ben. Waiting to see who's going to go. All right, go ahead, Ben.
I'll go with one thing that I would highly recommend. It was brought up earlier by, I think Bill said he'd bring in a salesperson. So Jamie is our salesperson. I highly recommend everyone have a Jamie. She is the networking person. She knows everybody's name, their kids' names, their pets' names, knows all the backstories, and really develops those relationships. So that's highly recommended if you don't have that. The other thing I would say do a little bit differently is really monitor your bottlenecks. I have become a bottleneck several times in our company, and then we're trying to hire. Jack will tell you hire before you need them, which is easier said than done for sure. But that is what I would do differently is probably try to identify those bottlenecks a lot sooner. And then, it's definitely monitor your costs. I'm as diligent as I can be on them, but it's hard to monitor everything when you're also, head installer and head sign maker and all the things when you're first starting out. So definitely kind of watch that stuff. And, if you got a conference room, you don't need furniture yet. If you only got one or two people, there's no conferencing to be done. So, just watch that kind of stuff and just grow into it slowly. Growing hurts. They're called growing pains for a reason, right? So just don't grow too fast.
Yeah, great advice. Jamie, anything to add?
I was going to say, can I just add, and this may be more unique to just us, but I think we were very naive in how we started, in that my role was going to be very much my role, and just doing the sales and marketing. And it worked, and it went great until we had a bottleneck, because the business was coming in, but we didn't have the people to execute. And I couldn't jump in to help because I never trained on Core Bridge because I don't like doing that kind of stuff. It's not my wheelhouse. It's not my gift. And so we were like, okay, well, you do this and I do that. So I think that was a big problem for us, and could have made a smoother path if we had not chosen to go that route. I also would be a better partner to our marketing company. I didn't put that together until a year or so in, and I feel like it really would have made a difference in just closing the circle. Like you're investing dollars, they're sending leads, but I have to tell them if those leads are good, and if they are good, what was it, and what are my margins on that? Do I want more of that? And so that's what we're doing now, and it's made a big difference. And I would also keep the job postings up all the time. The last two things we've hired, it took us 7 months to find an installer, and I still have the job posting up. And so every now and again, I'll get an inquiry, and I just give them a call and tell them we don't really have anything going on right now, but we want to talk to them just to get to know what's going on. They can learn about our company, which is very different from a lot of the competitor sign shops that we have right here. So who knows what might come available, but yeah, that hiring has been a challenge.
Yeah, keep that bench going and learn how to delegate. You can't do it all as you start get busier and busier. And to Bill's point, I think every owner has, specialties, backgrounds, skill sets that apply to the business in some aspect, but understand where you don't have those strengths and be willing to hire other people to do those things, whether that's the sales or it's the operations, etc. So all great responses. Thank you, owners. Let's go to our next guest, Stan. If you can come off of mute, tell the group where you're located and go ahead with the question for them today.
Hello, everyone. This is Stan Munoz, currently in San Antonio. It is also cold over here at 47 degrees Fahrenheit. My question revolves a little bit similar to the last one in regard to what has been your biggest challenge so far, and how were you able to overcome it? What kind of support were you provided as well to help you go through that?
All right, great question. Let's start with you, Dan. Dan, what's the biggest challenge you've faced in the business so far, and how'd you overcome it?
What's the biggest challenge?
I know. Probably got 5 that you're thinking of. Which one's
There's
the biggest?
lots of challenges. I guess, I mean, it's really what I found. It's about relationships, right? And so you're building relationships with clients, but not only clients, but with vendors. And so getting established with everybody is really important early. And so just building those relationships with your vinyl suppliers, with your installers if you're subbing stuff out and not doing it yourself, which most companies will have to do early on, at least. And so just it took a while for me to realize, hey, we can't do it all, and you really have to rely on your vendors and your partners to get stuff going. And you have to build. If you don't build good relationships with them, they can break you. So it's just building those relationships and being fair and dealing with people on the up and up. And once you get that network going, it's a lot easier to get things done that you didn't think or you may not have the skill and resource in-house to do.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Ben and Jamie, what, other than trying to fit in a very small space, I think I know your answer, but who wants to go with the biggest challenge you faced and how'd you overcome it?
You can have that, Ben.
I would say hiring has probably been our biggest challenge. We have a very specific way that we want to come across to our customers. We have a very specific image we're going for. We're trying to establish that as our brand. And so we have to be very careful in who we're hiring. We can't just find somebody that's got close enough skills. If they don't have kind of the image that we need, or they're going to go to a customer site and they're not going to have those people skills that we really want and have facing the customer. Jamie and I can't be everywhere all at once. So we're trying to hire people that will maintain the image that we're looking for when we're not around. One, so that we don't have to be everywhere all at once, and then 2, so that the company is in a position one day to be sold, and it still has that same culture and that same kind of mindset towards our customers. So yeah, hiring has been probably the most difficult one. It's not the most difficult one today. We've got 5 other ones for just today. But for since we started, it's been really the hiring, getting the personnel right.
Yep, very good. Bill, how about you? 18 years. I'm sure you've had a fair share of challenges along the way. What's the biggest one?
I would agree 100% with the hiring thing. And it seems to be harder this last 3 or 4 years than it has previous to then. We've been blessed. We have, I think our most tenured person is 13 or 14 years, but we have a number of folks who've been around for 5 to 8 years. So, and they understand how we operate, what we expect. And honestly, they'll come and tell me when I make a bad hire that this person isn't doing the way we do things. But I mean, right now we've got a job. We've actually, I think this is going to be our 4th attempt at a customer service representative. And we have 2 excellent ones and one who's good, very good. But finding a 4th one, holy cow, we're just going through them one after another and they keep failing. So, and well, one problem they have is we have two excellent ones and we're trying to make them like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But whether it's in production or whether it's in the office.
Yeah, and I'd say the broad community of Signworld, that's probably the number one challenge you'd hear from all owners. I think, the labor market today is very different than it was even just a few years ago, to Bill's point. So whatever business you're considering, I think that's likely going to be, one of the challenges any business faces. So great responses there. We're going to pause really quick. Sheree in the background is going to start playing some slideshows. We're going to continue the questions while these are playing. There's no sound to them. One of the slideshows is going to kind of show some of our owners and pictures of their buildings and them themselves and where they're located. Another one is going to be about what's in-house production with the initial package versus the type of projects you'll outsource, as well as some unique sign projects our owners have done from time to time. And then some pictures of just showing their internal operation. So those will be playing in the background as we continue through additional questions. So with that said, Bob, I saw a question posted in the Q&A. I don't know if you want to use that as your second question to ask out loud to the group, but the floor is yours for a question.
Yeah, I posted in the Q&A. I was just curious why we're buying equipment rather than leasing. Is there some sort of advantage to that?
Yeah, great question. So Bill, have you ever leased a piece of equipment instead of just bought it outright? Any advice to a potential owner, what to consider for purchasing the equipment, buy versus lease?
Well, I guess I've bought things on payment, which is kind of like leasing, but I've never really leased anything. My thought is that, well, I guess they have leases that you pay $1 to buy it out at the end, but I plan to keep my equipment longer than, like if you lease a car for 2 or 3 years, I plan to keep my equipment and use it. My first printer, um, shoot, became my secondary or tertiary printer, but I had it for 10 or more years.
Mhm.
I guess I'm asking from the standpoint of like, isn't it a tax write-off if you lease it versus buy it? Doesn't it have different tax exposure?
Well, you depreciate it if you buy it, and lately the tax laws have allowed you to depreciate it really fast.
Mhm.
So rather than having that continuous expense, but then it gets into what your income is that you can write the expense off. So you have to talk to your accountant about that.
Yeah. Ben and Jamie, how about you? Any advice on buy versus lease and tax write-offs?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, leasing it, would just be pure expense, and there's no, property taxes or anything. It would depend on, your municipality. If there are high property taxes, yeah, I might look into leasing something that's really expensive. And then, if you can kind of build into that lease, the maintenance to where you're not, on the hook for trying to figure that kind of thing out, that might be worthwhile doing. For me, I'd rather own it outright and be able to depreciate it and then use it well past its lifetime. And keep good running equipment, and then you've got something to even sell on the back end if you decide to upgrade. To me, tax avoidance, I'd rather make more money and than have to worry about how much I'm paying in taxes. So we're just more worried about kind of the top end and get that money in, rather than looking at what we can avoid paying. So I can see that it may be 6 in one, half a dozen in the other in most places. Here, it certainly would be. We pay some property tax, but it's not a lot. So I'm not too terribly worried about it. I think I'd rather own it where we are, and play it that direction.
Okay. And Dan, how about you?
I mean, it all comes down to, are you looking to, preserve your capital up front versus, and then have high monthly payments? I would rather, I mean, if you've got the capital to do it, I mean, I think buying is by far a better, and then depreciating is a better situation to be in rather than having high monthly payments. Going forward, I would consider new, if we're gonna go buy a router or something like that, I would probably buy on time. I don't believe I would lease because I just personally don't believe that leasing is a good use of your money.
Okay, very good responses. Thank you all. Eli, if you want to go ahead and come off of mute and go ahead with the second question for the group today.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your local markets. Obviously, we're all a little different, but between the Carolinas and up in Connecticut, just talking to me about how you compete against the local independents on pricing. If you want to go as far as to what percentage of your business is repeat customers. And I think a few of us mentioned some really profitable opportunities, but more focused on competing against local independents, and then what percentage of your business is repeat customers?
Great question. Can't get through a webinar without talking about competition. So well done there, Eli. All right, let's start with Ben first, or Jamie. When you came into the market, how do you compete against the locals? What do you think about them, and what's your percent of repeat today?
I'll take the first part and you can have the second part. But look, I'm just going to say, when he first talked about Signworld, I thought he was insane because I could name 6 sign shops off the top of my head right now. But Jack encouraged us to reach out to those companies and just put in an inquiry and see what our experience was like. And if people returned our calls, and we're still waiting for some of those calls to be returned. So what we learned was, we figured if we could just answer the phone and return phone calls, that we'd be winning over some of the competition. And then as we've been in business for a while, we have learned that some people have left other companies seeking a different experience. And we are really trying to position ourselves as a service-based company. So we jump through hoops that some of our competitors don't. And I think one thing that has really helped us stay competitive is that, Signworld pricing allows us to kind of appear like a franchise when it comes to the vendors, and we get those good price amounts so we can compete with like the Fast Signs and Signoramas and places like that here. But we have a couple of really well-established, like family-owned, been here for 40 years sign companies, and they've got a lot more capabilities than we do. But we had a creative person on our team that was really trying to find some local sourcing for us, and that was huge. We have a person who cuts, I'm not going to say the right term, okay, but like they cut the metal that we make some of these unique signs for us, and they charge us like $50 to cut it. We just have to drive it across town, so no big deal. And then also we found a local, an hour away from us, sign shop that does everything. So they do their own, they bend channel letters, they do all types of illuminated signage, cabinets, they do monuments, and they install for us. And we've built a great relationship with them and gave them a little over $100,000 worth of business last year. So they wholesale to us and they brand themselves. They wear our shirts, they wear our hats, and they put our stickers on the boom of their truck, like all that stuff. So that's been huge for us as far as being able to be competitive. And then Ben can answer that repeat customer stuff.
Yeah, I would say for competition, we don't really think about competition a lot. Our area is growing like crazy. There's plenty of business for everyone, and our phone rings plenty. So sometimes we get other customers that are leaving our competitors, but most of the time we don't really ask. We just kind of focus on our lane and the experience we want for them, and then they tend to come back. As far as coming back, we are roughly 15 to 20% repeat business right now. Just finishing our second year, we've had a lot of first-time customers this past year. A lot of first-time customers, obviously, almost all first-time customers are first year. But when you get these bigger jobs where you did a bunch of channel letters and interior signs for them, they don't need that every year, so I wouldn't expect them to come back. But they're starting to come back for some other stuff now. But most of our temporary or short-term stuff, we get a lot of repeat business from those folks. They're not large orders, but they tend to come back.
Well, and we do get referrals from those customers as well. So that has been really helpful.
Very good. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Ben and Jamie. Bill, you live in Atlanta, where I think we've got 15 other Signworld operations. So what do you think about the independents, other Signworld owners, competition overall, and what percent repeat business do you have now?
Well, having the other Signworld owners nearby has been great. That may sound funny, but when I first started, I met with a few of them, and they took me, two of them in particular took me around, introduced me to their subcontractors, and just helped on many things. In fact, I got a really big project that I wasn't capable of doing, or I didn't trust myself to do it. And I actually hired one as a consultant to help me determine what signs were needed and so forth and so on. So it's been great for us having other Signworld people around. As far as competitors go, I never ask. I do a don't tell, don't ask philosophy on whom I'm competing against. I don't want people to share my information with other people, our quotes and our proofs. So I don't ask people who we're fighting against or whatever. I just go for giving them my best presentation and explaining that we've been around for a while and that we are going to do the right thing. As far as the statistics go, even though I have a mathematical background, I don't keep up with the statistics. We're too busy doing other stuff. And I know I should, but I just don't do it.
That's all good. Very, very good, Bill. Thank you. All right, Dan, how about you?
So I have a list of sign companies in the area that we send Christmas cards to because clients come to us on a regular basis and say, we've been calling all these other companies and nobody's picking up the phone or they don't get back to us. So that was, service is what it's all about. If you just respond quickly to people, follow through with them, if things go bad, you fix it. If you just stand by your product and be generally a good business person, you'll do well. There's plenty of, as Ben said, there's plenty of business to go around. We have, I've got Signworld people near me. I've got a lot of legacy, what I call legacy companies around. We've got franchises. We've got the fast signs and whatnot. But we don't struggle too much with that. The business is here, and you just have to show up and do the job right and stay with people. Anytime I go out networking and get a chance to pitch, that's what I pitch. That's the differentiator. I say, we are a service-based company, and we will see you end to end. And if you look at our reviews, it bears out through the reviews. People appreciate that that you work with them all the way through. None of this one and done stuff. I want to build people that are going to keep coming back. And as far as repeat, I think I said it earlier. We're probably 30 to 40% repeat business at this point, and that's growing. So or referrals, I should say, repeat and referrals. So that network of local folks that work with us is growing, and they keep coming back. So it's a good thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. All
Thank
right. Fahad, do you have another question for the group today?
Just starting out, how did you decide on coming with no sign background or manufacturing background? How did you decide what should be like? How do you approach your network to offer that these are the things that you're capable of performing if you've never done those?
All right, great question. So coming from outside of the sign industry and not knowing anything, how'd you get confident talking to customers? Dan, let's start with you first.
I leveraged Signworld, I'll be honest with you. Just basically talking about that we were part of a network that was over 300 sign companies, independent sign companies strong. I did have my first hire was somebody that was in the business 30 years. And so I leveraged that very heavily and said, I may not be, but we have our staff is very highly experienced and able to do the work. So between those two things, and I did have an electromechanical background, so I felt very comfortable talking about the product. I understood it and whatnot. So that kind of gave me, but definitely leverage Signworld and just that you're part of this network and support structure that, if you don't know how to get it done, and it's not bad to say sometimes, I don't know how to get that done, but we know we have support that will help us get there. We'll be able to figure that out. And you'll say that a lot in the beginning. People will ask you if you can do it. The first answer is always yes. Then you go figure out how to do it.
That's all right. Very good. Bill, how about you back in the day when you first started?
Well, the funny thing is I've got a story from this morning. I was out in the freezing cold. Atlanta freezing cold was like 20 degrees. And I asked the customer how he chose us because it was the first time I'd met with him. and he mentioned that he called some other sign companies and they said, well, we don't really do that, but we can, or something like that, instead of giving it the old, as I did when I first started. I mean, I had a mechanical manufacturing background too, but do you do that? You bet we do. And we'll get you a quote and we'll be right on it and take care of it. So we didn't walk away from anything. If it was something silly, we would do it. Now we try to stay away from the silly, cheap stuff, and we try to only do things that are worth our time. But and as I said earlier about the pity sales, I mean everything that you do, any sign that you get out of your door, why it's something that you know. Well, I did that, so I can do something else too. In the sign world, intranet, asking questions. Okay, I'm brand new. I got this. I've got no idea how to do it, but I just told somebody I was going to take care of it. So what do I do? And the answers come magically back through the intranet.
Very good. And Jamie, you're the one out there talking to customers. Didn't come from the sign industry. How do you fake it till you make it and feel comfortable talking to clients about projects?
Xanax. No. Um, I agree with relying on Signworld. We did have our first hire, had about 6 years experience in the sign industry, and he was kind of well-rounded. Like he could design, he could install, he knew how to run the printer and the software. We're fortunate in that Ben is very mechanically minded, and he picked up the software and he understands the equipment. He went to the training, all of that stuff. And then he's obviously, engineer, materials, all of that kind of stuff. But the Signworld network is just, I can't even put a value on it. And I know it sounds crazy, like we're drinking the Kool-Aid, but we really are, because it's good. And the resources are there. So we just leveraged it. Jack would give us a tip. He said, hey, yeah, we're new, which means that I have all kinds of time to spend on your project, to taking the very best care of you. And I'm trying to establish a relation or a reputation in my space. So I don't know of anybody that would give more effort to making sure that your project comes off without a hitch. And I have all of these hundreds of owners across the country who have probably, someone has done a project similar to yours that I can use as a resource. So those were kind of the things that we fell back on. And it seemed to work out well for us.
Great responses. And the only thing I'll add to that is most owners are doing business week training and technical week training and some on-the-job training before you even talking to some of those initial clients. So you're getting a lot of information up front to help equip you before you start having those interactions. But all great answers.
Hey, Jeannie, can I add something real quick?
Yeah, please do, Ben.
Speaking of that training, so you'll go through the technical training, you'll go through the other business training. So you'll know this much about signage, but that is that much more than your customer is going to know about signage. So all you got to do is just stay a step ahead of them. So that's where the confidence should come from, is at least I know what this is called. They don't really know what it's even called. So you can just baffle them with that and then say, yes, we know how to do it. And then when you get back to the office, that's when you freak out. You get on the Signworld forum and you find out who's done it and who can coach you through it.
Yeah, great commentary. Thank you, Ben. So owners, really quick thumbs up if we can ask one final question. One person didn't get a chance for a second question, just in case they have one. Thank you very much. Stan, do you have a final question for today?
Yes, appreciate you all. Very quickly, what is the time commitment during the first year, and at what time do you guys leave your previous employment or duties to focus 100% on this?
Okay, that's a great question, and every journey is different. But let's go to Ben and Jamie first. How much time did you commit to the business? You got two very active children, so nights and weekends, what did it look like for you?
A lot of time.
Yes.
So I had my corporate role. We actually formed our corporation in April. That's when we signed up. I did Signworld training, the technical training and the business training over the summer. I actually flew out to California, just took vacation from my job. And then we decided that I wasn't going to quit until we found a location, which only took 7 months. So basically I quit, and then I think I quit on like a Friday, and then Monday we were opening our doors. I didn't take any time off. So just squeezed every ounce of it out. But yeah, we're still working a lot of late nights, a lot of weekends. But you know, it's all based on how you want to grow. So we've tried to grow very quickly revenue wise, to replace that corporate salary. We have 2 children. We didn't want to, you know, really change our lifestyle or have to sell our house or anything like that. So we jumped in with a lot of cash and a lot of our foot has been on the gas the whole time. So, you know, we chose that. Some folks, you know, come in and they don't necessarily need to be paid for the first couple of years, so they don't have to do the full foot on the gas, working 60, 70-hour weeks. But that's what we're doing. And you know, working for yourself, it sounds really tiring, but it's a different type of exhaustion. You're building something new. It's a different kind of stress. It's like a workout stress rather than a sick stress. You know, it's different, but it's not easy,
Mhm.
but it's good.
And I would just add that after a while, you figure out how to be more purposeful and very targeted with your time. So in the beginning, especially the networking, it's really important to just, you know, put your name out there. And but over time, you figure out like, oh, these aren't my people. You know, like these are the yard sign people. These are the banner people. And that's really not what we're trying to do. So once you figure that out, you do get a little bit of that time back because you're more purposeful in finding the right places to network.
Great feedback. Thank you. Dan, 4 years in, what was it like that first year from a time and commitment effort? And did you work a second or your other job, or were you 100% in right in the beginning?
Yeah, so I was kind of unique in that I retired, and that was why we decided to go into another business. So I had my 39 years in corporate and was able to fully retire. And we just decided that there was no way I was retiring. I wasn't ready for that. So we intended to start a business. So yes, so I gave it full attention right from the get-go, but I did the same thing. I think I took a week off from the time I retired. I took a week, said I'm not doing anything, although I did a lot of Signworld training. And then jumped right into the business after that. And then my wife, my partner, worked for the first year, and then after she retired after the first year, once we got it up and running, and she now works full time with us.
And as far as nights and weekends, have you been working, you know, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week in those first years, or what would you say is the
Yeah,
average?
easily 60 to 80 hours a week. But I made a commitment. My corporate life, I worked weekends all the time. And I said, this is my company. We are not working weekends. So I do everything I can. I still spend a couple hours a weekend, but I don't commit anything to customers, and I don't make my people work on a weekend unless we really have a big project to get out.
Okay, very good. Bill, how about you? I know it's been a while, but what would you say was your early start look like?
Um, it was a lot of time, I mean, trying to figure out all the network events I could get to, and anybody I could talk to who was a friend or whatever, to try to get as much networking done as I could. Um, it was I and one other person. I had a sign maker, so I had to find subs and some people to help install, and all coordinating all that stuff. It took a lot of hours. I will say, however, that I have never had a year that I did not take a family vacation, and I never missed important events in my kids' lives, whether it was a concert or whatever it might be, football game, basketball game. I was able to work my schedule around all of those things. So I do not regret that. And let me just one more thing for anybody who's getting into the business. Make sure you visit a number of different sign companies. I know that is suggested, but you need to make sure that you do that so that you can learn some things that they're doing, whether it's how they have their plant organized, any number of those things that you can gain some quick experience and not have to reinvent the wheel.
Absolutely. Leverage the network, leverage the resources, 100%. So just a real quick comment. I'd say the average is probably 55 hours a week for a first year owner. There are some that do the 60, 70, 80. There are some who do, you know, really do cap it at the 40 to 50. But I think holistically, whatever business you're starting, your first year, you're learning a lot. So expecting anything less, I think is not realistic. And it's for you. You're building something for yourself, and you're not working for someone else, and you're controlling your schedule. So there's a lot of benefits, but it is definitely a lot of work. There's no work around that for sure. So with that said, we're going to wrap up for today. So first and foremost, Ben and Jamie, Dan and Bill, thank you all very, very much for taking time out of your day to share your thoughts and perspectives with this group. We really appreciate you. And to our prospective guests, we appreciate your interest in learning more about us. Look forward to those continued conversations to help you determine if this is the right next chapter in your lives. So with that, I wish everyone a wonderful, safe, warm, for the record, it's minus 35 degrees here in Wisconsin. Very safe and warm rest of your Wednesday and your week. Be blessed and be well. So thank you all for joining. Have a good one.
Thank you all.